Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to a new episode of Sports Management Podcast, and this one is the last one of 2022. And it's a good one. It has been a great year, and I'm very excited to tell you that I have a couple of fantastic guests to kick off the new year. So subscribe to the podcast in order to not miss out. Now, today's guest is Elsa Diaz. She's a professional golfer managed by her sister and previous sports management podcast guest Sara Diaz. This episode will focus on sports management from the eyes of a professional golf player. Get ready to learn. How is the cooperation between Elsa and her coach, manager, sponsors, and other partners? Why did she decide to have her sister as her manager? Why is she spending so much time together with her father to improve her golf swing? The reason why she cut down on traveling? And much more. And as always, we are sponsored by InSport Education, the online business school for sport. If you want to take your sports career to the next level or kickstart it, there is no better time than right now. Give yourself or someone you care about a present in the form of education. With the code Sports Management Podcast 10, you get 10% off all of their courses and programs. So head over to their website right now. The link is in the show notes. Elsa Diaz, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. We are winding down a little bit on the off season, which, as everybody in the sports world know, you're kind of winding down on the tournaments, but then you're kind of starting to, kind of get back into the off season training. So I think mentally sometimes we think we're kind of getting a little bit of a break, but this is the time where we kind of step it up a little bit.
Yes. So for those who might not know, you are a professional golfer. So first of all, why did you start playing golf, and what does it take to be a professional golf player?
Well, I started playing golf when I was 9 years old, and I remember that golf really wasn't a sport that I immediately loved. The real reason why we started playing was because my dad put me and my siblings in the First Tee Golf program. And this program is a wonderful program that teaches life skills through the game of golf. So it's not very much that it's all about golf. It's more about learning all these life skills. But because golf and life kind of go hand in hand in what, perseverance, responsibility, and etiquette, and the social aspect of it, it's such a great program to learn a lot of life things through golf. So that's where I started. And I remember that at that time, I was kind of already looking at what sports and what activities I like doing and why. So I remember I really liked to be in theater, and I really liked that individual aspect of it, but I really liked sports. And I remember, I played basketball and volleyball and I ran. And when I started playing more golf, I started realizing how intense the sport can actually be, even though it's so slow paced. And it really started challenging me, to the point that I started really liking that part of the sport. And then I started, playing in tournaments, and you start seeing yourself succeed a little bit more. So you start kind of getting more involved with the tournament, with the sport. And then when I was around 15 or 16, I went to the First Tee Pebble Beach Open, which is now called the Pure Insurance. And that was what I believe kind of my great accomplishment. Like the first time that I really tried something and I failed, and I tried and I finally qualified. And when I went to Pebble Beach, you get to play with champion tour players, which are players that used to play on the PGA, and now they're older than 50. So they enter the Champions Tour, and you get to play with these guys, and they treat you like a professional golfer at that age, 15 or 16. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is it. Like, I remember being at Pebble Beach, and it just clicked in my mind that I was like, this is what I'm meant to be. It fits the individualistic and the performing in front of people of theater, but it also fits like the sports and the athletic part that I really enjoyed about all the other sports that I like to play. And ever since then, I've been going and trying to answer your other question. I've been trying to, you go kind of up in levels. So you start on the mini tour, you have to, play, and in the mini tours, you can play well enough throughout the year where you rack up enough points to hopefully have your LPGA tour card at the end. There's multiple ways of doing it. That's just the most simplistic way of doing it. There's the Q school route where you can try to go to Q school, which is actually just a tournament, 3 stages. And at the end, if you end up at the top, you get your LPGA tour card, or you can try to do LPGA Monday qualifiers, which is kind of what I've been doing recently.
And when you turned pro, I know that you had your sister, Sara Diaz, as your manager. And she has also been a previous guest on this podcast.
Yes, yes. She was the one who introduced us. Yes, she was my manager, or she is my manager technically. When I turned pro, I always thought that nobody knows me better than my sister. And I knew that she was going to be, she was going to be very fair with everything that I needed to do. If I told her, hey, we need to speed up, she'd speed up. And I said, if we need to slow down, we can slow down. But nobody knows me better than my sister and my brother. So it just made sense to have her by my side.
I understand that. But can it not be also a challenge that, for example, if you need some tough love or...
Not really. I think what works between my sister and I is that we think different. And I think that while we were trying to figure out the sponsorships and what paths to take and what to do, I think that for me, when I'm seeking advice, I'm always seeking for somebody to give me the opposite of what I'm already thinking, to see if, hey, am I right in this, or are you wrong? And I think Sara is a very approachable person, and she was very easy to just pick up the phone and be like, sister, I can't figure this out. What am I trying to do? And I think Sarah's always been on board with whatever I decide. So if I tell her, hey, I think I'm not going to play next couple weeks, she'll be like, okay, rest, and if I say, hey, I want to play, but I'm not sure, she's like, go ahead, so she's an extremely supportive sister. I think it helps too that she's the older one. She's very understanding. So we never really ran into anything. Again, I think because she's known, we've known each other forever since, obviously since we're both part of the same family. So it became very easy. And I think to me, when it came to having those difficult conversations, it's just so much easier to have them with your sister. And if we ever need anybody, we just bring in a parent or something.
They come into medal in between.
Yeah.
Sara has also been a professional golfer herself and made a similar journey as you, and might know some of the pitfalls that she fell into. So is she helpful on that point regarding that she has a similar experiences as you're going through right now?
Yeah, well, my sister never actually turned pro, but she played in college golf, and she obviously worked for the PGA Tour before. So I think her seeing it from inside of the PGA Tour, and also, like you say, her playing college golf and us being coached by my father, it was very easy. It's just, she's hit a couple walls and she understands, and she's had a lot of successes, and she's told me what works for her. And now that she doesn't play at such a high competitive level, she can also tell me when sometimes I'm kind of looking at it a little bit too deeply, if that makes sense. She can give me an outsider's perspective too, which helps a lot.
I understand that. So what you're saying is that you are the better golfer.
I'm just the one who has had the opportunity to keep going because I have my sister and my brother in front of me. They've kind of helped me get to where I want to go to. So I've been the fortunate one for sure.
Yeah, so kidding aside, this podcast is sports management podcast, and we focus on the back office side of sports usually. So today, talking to you as a professional golfer, I'm very interested to see how is it like in the sports industry from an athlete's perspective. So can you tell us a little bit about how is it to be a professional golfer? How is your relationship to your manager, coach, sponsors, and so on?
So my father is my coach, and so my sister is my manager. With my sister, because I don't play a full, I'm not full time on the LPGA yet. So I think this is where I feel like I've needed my sister the most, is trying to pick and choose what tournaments I should go to depending on how ready I feel, if that makes any sense. So why the trio works between having my father, me, and my sister is because I tell my sister kind of what I'm working with my dad. And then from there, we kind of just decide like, okay, maybe you should go to this tournament, one, to get experience, or maybe you should go to this tournament because I actually think you could win this, or maybe you should go to this tournament because, you haven't played in a while. So that's kind of what me and my sister work on a lot. And at the same time, obviously the sponsorship side and, getting on podcast side. And what I've done with my dad is that we work on my golf swing quite a bit. And I think that I work on my swing more than most golfers, but it's just the way my dad and I have decided that we want to work on. So in the day to day, I live here with my dad. So I usually wake up, go stretch out. I kind of do every other day. One day I'll stretch out, and the other day I'll actually work out. And then I go and practice with my dad. And it's a very mechanical practice. So technically like a lesson. And we actually are always hitting it. Like we go hit inside because we have the cameras in a simulator. And in this way, we can get very nitpicky and detail oriented. And so then I practice with him about usually an hour or two with him. And then I will go by myself to the golf course and either play or hit the range and work on a little bit more of just hitting the ball, right? Not being so detail oriented, working on the flow. And then usually I'll come back home and then I'll tell my dad, like, okay, this is what I saw. This is what I was able to do. And then we do it all over again. And then the next day, either I go stretch out, work out, go to the PGA, we work on stuff, and then I go to the golf. And that's kind of how it's worked well. It's definitely, as an athlete, to talk about the management side, I think it's something that we've altered quite a bit. In the beginning, when I turned pro, I needed the life on the road experience. So me and my sister said, okay, I have a good sponsorship backing. So I'm just going to go play the full season. Play the full season of the mini tour. So I did that for a couple of years. And then me and my sister kind of just looked at it and said, I don't think this might be our path. And I don't think that me being on the road so much helps me with what I'm trying to accomplish with my dad. So I think that's why, like in the last year or two, we've said, I'm just going to do the Monday LPGA qualifiers. And, and this is stuff, like I tell you, that me and my sister are constantly talking about. I'm constantly bringing my dad in. And now what I'm doing is I play in these Monday qualifiers. I just don't play as often, which makes a lot of sense because I get to come back home and my dad look at the drawing board. There's players out there that get lessons, once every 6 months, or once every month. And even when I was on the road, me and my dad were trying to Zoom and WhatsApp all the time. And it's just not the same as having my dad actually see me, place me in the positions. So it's been a very evolving type of management. But I feel like every time I ask golfers for some advice, who have done what I've done, they kind of say you never really quite figure out that part. You kind of just keep switching it up to what you're doing.
I understand that. And you talked about that it's important to pick the right tournaments, that Sara is helping you out with that. So how important is it to find the right tournament? Are some more prestigious? Are some watched by more scouts? Or how is that?
Yeah, so with golf, the only reason why we would ever want some, I guess we want to call it a talent scout, is really just for sponsorships. Because in golf, the only way you get to the top is by like qualifying through. It's not like soccer or basketball or baseball where you have scouts and then they'll place you on the LPGA. You actually have to play your way through, which is a really cool part of it because it all falls on you. So for me, what Sara and I usually talk about is, have I been getting enough competitive reps in, right? Have I been playing enough tournaments? And then, like I told you in the beginning, when I started playing, it was actually learning to just live on the road. It was a huge part of just getting comfortable with being in different cities, different golf courses. And like I said, since we did that for a while, now I feel like I have enough of that experience. And now I'm going to tournaments where I feel like I have the highest chance to make the biggest jump. So now I go to the LPGA Monday qualifiers, 50 girls play, and the top two get a spot on the LPGA for that week, which I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but which is a huge deal for me because if you go to the mini tour, you have to play on the mini tour, have to play on the mini tour over like a whole season to even try to kind of jump. But if you do play a whole mini tour season, you get a full year to play on the LPGA. Mine is just for that 1 week. But for me, I have played in an LPGA tournament, and because I got a little bit of TV time, and it was really close to the city where I went to school at Richmond, Virginia. I played in Williamsburg, Virginia. I got a lot of people to come watch me, and that was a great tournament to put on my playing resume. Like again, for sponsorships, because at the end of the day, you really can't do it without sponsorships. You need a lot of financial backing to even try to go on the road for a couple of weeks.
When I spoke to Sara, she said that you are very marketable and you are easy to promote. So do you know if it has been difficult for her to bring in sponsors, or has it been pretty easy?
Yeah, it's been, I think Sara obviously has done a great job. The first sponsor that I had, we had them for 3 years, and they were a phenomenal sponsor. They backed me up. They were my sole sponsor, which means I didn't have any other sponsor other than them, other than a little deal I had with Lexus of Richmond. But I think as a player, you definitely feel the pressure, and I remember because I was so new at it when I first graduated, that first or second or third year as a pro, it just, you have a bad tournament and it definitely makes you think, and you know that your sponsors are watching. And it can be tough if you have a couple bad tournaments, So what I kind of did is after that sponsorship ended, we started seeking new sponsors, and we had a couple bites here and there, but I knew that me and my dad wanted to experiment a little bit more. And so I told Sara, I was like, you know what, sis, I think that maybe we should hold out on the sponsorships a little bit, just so I can feel very comfortable with just experimenting and going to a tournament and failing and learning and not feel like the world's coming down on me. And that's kind of what I started doing. So that's why I started caddying, because now it's kind of, it's my own money that I'm putting up front. And, if the tournament doesn't go that well, it was on my own penny. So I'm sponsored by all my side gigs, by Elsa's side gigs. So it is difficult now. I get like, if you're playing really well, then, I feel like it can be obviously a little bit easier, but you still feel it. And I think that's a part that you kind of just have to say, well, this is just the way it really is. And I remember I called a friend I don't know why I called him, but he used to be, he toured with Crowded House, the hey now, don't it's over. And I just kind of told him that I was like, sometimes I feel like this pressure. And I was like, it's not even there because my sponsors never pressured me ever. And I just still felt it. And he was like, you just have to kind of even pretend that it's not there and just go play, because it's kind of funny, the more you try not to mess up and you try not to fail, you end up playing worse, right? Than just going out there and just giving it all. So it's interesting, and I can say that I don't have it quite down just yet, especially because like I said, I've taken a little bit of a break from that sponsorship side. But I definitely think it was our best move, even though I feel a little bit tight financially. But again, it has just given me such a, like, I can just let go when I'm playing and when me and my dad work on something and I've already signed up for a tournament, I'm like, Dad, I don't know. I don't feel great. He's like, just go and fail. He's like, just go and learn. And that's just so relieving to just go tee it up and just be like, I'm just here to learn. And you always end up playing better. Funny enough.
It sounds a little bit like one step back, two step forward. Like what you said before, that you have cut down on traveling to be more at home to practice. So are you trying to see the long game and the long-term planning?
Yes, that's definitely a really good question. And that's kind of why I did it too, because being on the road, you burn out quick, not from the golf. I don't think I'd burn out from the golf, but just from being home, from being far from home and just staying in, a lot of times we stay in host families. So it is great. These host families open their homes to us and they let us stay there for, a week and a half. But you do suddenly feel like, you like example, you'll come home and you don't have any friends here. All your friends are out on the road, and you come home and like you're like, I see my parents older when I come, and I think that sometimes when you're on the mini tour, you're scratching your head like, God, I'm doing so much of this traveling and I'm not even on the top tour yet. So that was kind of what I was thinking too, that I was like, if I'm going to grind it out on the road and live life on the road full time, I would want it to do it on the big tour, and I think I'm kind of like saving a little bit more of myself and my traveling spirit for that a little bit more, because it is long. And I really do think that sometimes when players decide not to play anymore, it's usually because of the lifestyle, more than anything. So I definitely think that, like you said, planning for the long term was part of that decision too. And again, my dad, and it helps that my father sees it this way very much as well, because he's like, hey, I understand you're playing, but he's like, but I need you to fix these things. So in the long term, you don't really need me. That's always kind of what he said. He's like, I really want to just get you down and we'll drill and we'll try as hard as we can for now, because once once you go, you'll be able to figure it out yourself if there's a little tweak here and there that you need to make. He's like, but I don't really think you'll need to be coming back and doing all the WhatsApp calls and all that. So definitely on the long-term path here. Well, that requires a lot of patience.
Yeah. You said your father is a coach. So what is his background in golf?
So my father is a chiropractor, and he had patients that would complain about their neck and their back, and a lot of them were golfers. And my dad hadn't played golf before, and he just kind of started thinking like, why are these golfers getting hurt? So he kind of started to go and play and started to try to figure out, what was it about the golf swing that was hurting these people? And he soon found out, because it doesn't take that many golf swings to start getting hurt. So my dad really started thinking like, it'd be cool to kind of just be able to develop a game or develop a golf swing where people don't get hurt and they can just enjoy the game. And at the same time, be kind of good at it without having to, sacrifice your body. Because I think there's some great golfers, let's say Tiger Woods, including Tiger Woods, you blow out your knee, you blow out your back. And that was kind of like my dad's first curiosity with the golf swing. So he started really getting into the biomechanics of it, and his background in chiropractic really helped him. And once he started investigating a little bit more, there's been two golfers who have said, Tiger Woods said there's only two golfers that own the golf swing, and that's Ben Hogan and Mo Norman. Mo Norman is known to be one of the straightest shooters and best players of the golf with the golf swing. And he always said, if you're hurting yourself, you're overusing a part. So my dad said, clearly we're overusing the neck and the back, wrist, knees, whatever goes when we play. So he started kind of trying to, I guess in a sense, figure out this golf swing. And if Mo Norman and Ben Hogan were able to do it, then, why couldn't my dad? So he started trying to figure it out, and he started teaching us. And he really just wanted to teach us golf so we would be able to play, just so we could use it for business. But once he started teaching me, I realized that I could play at a really pretty high competitive level with very little experience. I could keep up. if in a sense. And that was when I was a junior golfer. And then I started playing really good as a junior golfer. And that's kind of where I got the itch. And that's when I said, oh yeah, I can play. I can play professionally, So that's our story with the golf swing and my dad.
That's very interesting. And also what you said that you started playing when you were 9. In my mind, that feels a bit late to start playing.
Yeah, it's pretty late. But now that I think about it, because my dad raised me in a way of trying to understand things, when you're young, as a young golfer, you don't really think about a lot of things about the golf swing, right? And I think that's why kids can get so good, because a lot of the golf swing is not what you think it is how Ben Hogan described it. It's almost like, I think he would say, whatever you think the golf swing is, do the opposite. And when we're little, because our brain's not fully developed, young kids, Tiger, Rory, they learn how to hit the ball. And so you repeat that enough times that you have this swing for a lifetime, which I think I even struggled, because when I was young, I always try to hit the ball really far. So I started kind of swaying to hit the ball. And it has taken us forever to unwire that, because that's not the proper way to hit a golf ball. That's no way to get consistency. So even if I started golf at 9 or 15, the way that we've approached it, I don't think would have made a difference, because at the end of the day, my dad's goal has been for me to understand the golf swing, not just to be a good player, but I'm talking like we sit down and he sketches out the golf swing, and he's like, right here. And what does the oblique do? And what does your scap do? And what's the order of your elbow and your hands? And so to my dad's point of how he's wanted me to approach the golf game, I don't really think it would have made that big of a difference. Maybe I'd be a little bit of a better golfer. Maybe I wouldn't have struggled with so many of these thoughts of like, okay, I think I'm supposed to be doing this or that. But either way, I think when you talking about the long term, when you take the path of trying to understand the golf swing, it can be a very confusing, frustrating path. And I think that if I would have started at 2 or 3, I would have eventually had to hit this point to understand it, and would probably be right back right now.
I see. One aspect that I find very interesting is mindset and the psychology, and golf is a very good example of that. Although you have your coach and your managers and so forth, you are still alone out there. It's a very mental game. All the pressure is on you. Although you said before you didn't have it from your sponsor, but you had them on yourself. Comparing it to a team sport like soccer or basketball, if you have a bad day, you can blend in with the team and maybe your team is doing a good game anyway. But in golf, it's completely dependent on your performance. So how have you been working on your mindset?
I really have always been fascinated by the subconscious mind. And to go along with that, I've always seen golf a little bit more as a craft than a sport. I know earlier I said that I liked golf because I blended the athleticism part of it, but I have approached the game in a little bit more of the way artists approach painting or having writer's block, or or poets trying to bring something, or musicians. I've always kind of been fascinated by the idea that, I think I saw the Coldplay documentary, and he said something like, you play thousands and thousands of progressions and chords just to like have this moment where your brain gets a light bulb and you write like the perfect song in 5 minutes. And that's kind of how I've always, not always, it's how I have learned to approach golf, just to be a little bit more patient. I sit down with my father and we look at the swing, and we look at like Rory's videos and other people swing thousands and thousands and thousands of times just to have that little light bulb. And then you go and try it, and then it doesn't work. And so then you have to come back, and then you just keep trying. And I think my fascination with the subconscious mind, I have dedicated some time to reading a couple of books that talk about the subconscious mind. And it talks about this beautiful balance of like trying too hard, but also stepping away from it. And I have seen it a couple times after I heard Arnold Palmer say that you have to learn when to walk away from practice because it lets your brain rest a little bit. And it's happened plenty of times where I'm practicing and then I'm like, okay, I gotta go home. And when I'm home, maybe folding laundry, I'm like, I have the idea, or I should go and look at it one more time with my dad. So it's this like just kind of like little flow or wave or whatever you want to call it that you kind of learn to just ride. I think for the sake of just staying sane, like for the sake of just not putting so much pressure on yourself and trying to just enjoy it a little bit more, if that makes sense. So I've dedicated a lot of time, like I said, into reading about the subconscious mind. I did go to a sports psychologist when I was younger, but I didn't like his approach. And I think that I tried his approach for about a year, and it took me like 3 years to kind of like, I like the other way. I like the other way I was doing it. So I just decided I was going to take matters in my hands, and that's why I started kind of like doing a little bit more of this reading. And my favorite book is called, what's it called? The Big Magic. And she talks a lot about that stuff, just the position of just trying too hard and then backing off. So that's kind of where I can't quite put my finger on it, but you're just kind of like in this flow, trying to just live harmoniously.
That's a good book suggestion as well. And yeah, sports psychology is super interesting. I believe I have had 3 guests on the podcast who are sports psychologists. So definitely an interesting topic. But of course, you need to find that chemistry when working with a mental coach.
Yes, for sure. And my dad's really good friends with Bruce Bowen, who played on the NBA. They won 3 championships with the Spurs. And he's always been somebody who I can just call, and he'll remind me about a lot of things. I did that especially when I was very young. But I think something that, I'm sure I've heard my dad say and Bruce say and my sister is, I think that, I kind of have all the answers. I just kind of have to learn how to dig them out of myself. And that's kind of what I've begun to do. I don't like being told what to do, so I gotta, I have to bring it out of myself rather than, hiring somebody. I just didn't want to do the guesswork of, like you said, trying somebody and trying different people, like you said. And like I said, I also didn't have the financial means to hire somebody. So I was like, well, I guess I gotta do this myself.
I see. You're very active on social media, TikTok, for example. Mm-hmm. So if the listeners want to follow you, where do they do that best?
Definitely. I think I'm the most active on Instagram, where I am Elsa Diaz ____. But I should be the first one that pops up. Elsa Diaz, professional golfer. On TikTok, I've just been trying. I kind of just like the app. The app just makes me happy. It just makes me laugh what people do. So sometimes it inspires me to post stuff, especially because I feel like I see so much stuff out there on the road. But my TikTok is at Elsa Diaz _. So either one, Elsa Diaz, it should pop up. I think I'm the only Elsa Diaz golfer, at least. So that's where I can be found.
On Instagram was Elsa Diaz __ taken. So you had to put 3 in there?
I guess so. I don't know why I had to put 3, but I don't know. I've seen people kind of look me up on their phone and it pops up right away. Just if you put Elsa Diaz. So I don't know why I had Instagram and you put the 3 in.
It's because you're famous. That's why you show up first.
I tried.
A lot of TikTok material is from your car. Are you spending a lot of time on the road?
Yes. I don't know what it is about the car that it reminds me. I think I spend a lot of time in my car because I drive to all my tournaments. But I swear, on the road, you just hear you don't even have to be doing anything. You just keep your ears open and you'll hear everything. And that's been a really cool part of professional golf. Just getting a chance to see a little bit of little small towns and big towns and how people are. That's always fun.
I'm sure. And I encourage all the listeners to follow your channels because it's good stuff.
Well, thank you very much.
Approaching the end here, is there something that I haven't asked you that you would like to bring up?
Enforcement? No, I don't think so. I think what I was trying to say earlier that you gotta, I've always thought that I when I learned to give myself a little bit of wiggle room with every decision, I think it's what always turns out the best. When I decided to go to a tournament, you always on the road, you always know something is gonna expect the unexpected kind of thing, and I think I've learned to just be like, okay, I'm gonna go to a tournament and I'm gonna take this flight and get there and this, but you already know things are gonna change. And I think like everything, you got to just be able to be super flexible with everything. That's what I've learned. And I think with anybody who's trying to do anything, that's what I would always advise. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room with every decision.
That's good advice.
Well, thank you.
The last question I ask everyone is, if you can choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you want me to talk to?
Ooh.
And you cannot choose Sara because she has already been on the podcast.
I don't know, but you could have Bruce. I think I've learned a lot from him. He's coaching now. He's coaching at his son's high school. But like I said, I've learned a lot from him just from being my father's really good friend to him being an NBA champ. It's so cool to learn. And he was the reason why I learned the lesson of just, hey, you're here right now and you have to be happy where you're at. And it doesn't mean you're not still working towards your goal, but you have to accept where you are right now and give it all you got for now. You can't just sit around and be mad that you're not where you want to be.
Yes. I would be honored to have Bruce on the podcast.
Well, I'll mention it to him.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Elsa Diaz, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.